What If came to an end earlier this week with the finale of What If Season 3. Now, I feel like it was apparent based on my previous video on What If after I watched the first 2 episodes that I wasn't really getting hooked this season, and that feeling carried on all the way to the finale. This is the first Marvel show pre-Disney Plus that I haven't felt very compelled to watch every single episode as it released. That being said, I do think Season 3 had its bright spots, and I think What If overall had some good ideas thrown into it. In this video, I want to kind of discuss my thoughts on What If in general and what exactly Season 3 did wrong that made myself and so many other viewers not really interested in what was going on. Now, I feel like my main source of criticism ties back into the previous video I made on What If. With Season 3, it feels like we've gotten very far away from the original idea of what If was supposed to be, taking iconic moments in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, changing one detail and seeing the outcome. Season 1 is where this format worked the best. Every episode in Season 1 showed exactly what could have happened if things played out with one tiny change in the MCU. Now, by the end of the season, we did get an overarching storyline, but I feel like it worked within the concept of the anthology. Season 2, I'd say, had some hits and misses. Some of the episodes acted as follow-ups to some of the scenarios we saw in Season 1, while the other episodes were weirder one-offs such as Happy Hogan Saving Christmas or the 1602 episode. And I think that the overarching storyline for the last episode does kind of work here. They were sowing the seeds for what was going to happen throughout the entire season, and it was kind of cool to see another storyline like this. Season 3 was just kind of filled with whatever they thought the best ideas were to wrap up on, but I do think there are some good, solid standout episodes here. For me, my favorite episode of the bunch was the Red Guardian Winter Soldier episode. I really liked the dynamic between those two characters. It's something we haven't seen before yet, and it gives us a hint of what to look forward to when Thunderbolts releases and we see these two characters interact in the mainline MCU. My second favorite episode is a traditional what if scenario. Having the emergence happen before the Eternals could reassemble was a really interesting way to look at it, and I liked the return of Mysterio done in a very interesting way. Besides that though, the 2 episodes I was looking forward to the most happened to be the bigger disappointments of this season. The Mech Avengers episode I already talked about. I thought it was a cool idea, but it didn't really fully deliver on what this episode could have been. Then the other big letdown was What If 1872. Reimagining the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the context of a Western is a really cool idea, but this episode again doesn't really deliver on it, focusing primarily on a variant of Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop. We do see variants of other characters such as John Walker and Sonny Birch, but I just didn't feel like this delivered as much as it could have, such as what we saw with the 1602 episode. I would have liked to see Old West variants of more Marvel characters than what we ended up getting in this episode. The 2 episodes I was the most meh on was What If Agatha Went to Hollywood. I thought that one had a cool idea behind it, but I just didn't really care that much about the episode in general. And What If Howard the Duck Got Hitched. That one was a fun buddy adventure, but again, I would have liked to see more episodes that follow that anthology format of changing one detail in the MCU. What I didn't expect was this episode was going to come back in the 2-part finale, and I do feel like the 2-part finale is this season's biggest strength and weakness. I say strength because I think it is the most compelling overarching narrative that we've had in this show so far. It falls flat because I don't think it properly establishes the heroes that we follow in the episode. We again have Captain Carter and Cohorte coming back. I'm glad to see both of those characters. I liked them in the previous 2 seasons. What I didn't realize is that a lot of fans seem to not really like Captain Carter, which I do kind of understand. It feels like she was a bit shoehorned into this season. And I do have a theory on why Captain Carter managed to persist throughout Season 2 and Season 3. Then we have the new addition characters such as Birdie, who I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize who this was supposed to be until halfway through the first part. It seemed like they were just randomly adding a new character to this show's lineup that we haven't seen before. It wasn't until the halfway point that I realized this is supposed to be the child of Howard the Duck and Darcy. That was the basis of the Howard the Duck episode from this season. And I feel pretty justified in not understanding that because there was never a moment when this character was introduced to these other two. It feels like there was a part of the story story that was missing. And speaking of parts of the story that were missing, the out-of-the-blue inclusion of Storm, the Goddess of Thunder. I understand we just had X-Men 97 and that was a pretty big hit and very popular with fans, but this is Storm's debut in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it feels like it was just very lackluster. She shows up with no backstory or identity outside of the fact that she is Storm wielding Mjolnir. And now I'm gonna speculate on what exactly happened with this season and why it felt so rushed. My main assumption with the Exiles being introduced in the season was this is how What If was always supposed to end. Every season we would be introduced to a group of variants, and whoever the most popular characters from each group would go on to exist in future seasons. Now, Captain Carter I feel like was set up in season 1 because they knew she would be returning in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, and that would have been the final time we would have seen this character. Because remembering season 1, the breakout character that everybody liked the most was T'Challa as Star-Lord, but Disney made it very clear that after Chadwick Boseman's passing, they would not recast the character. It felt like there was a lot more for this version of the character to do. I just get the idea that there was supposed to be a lot more of this show than what we got. I do think there is a future with Jeffrey Wright as Uatu. I would be really surprised if we didn't see this character turn up in Doomsday or Secret Wars, and it does seem like this show acted as kind of a backdoor pilot for things like the Exiles. I think the possibility of these characters turning up again is still there, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I do think the potential for Disney to revive What If in a few years is still open. The opportunity to look at different stories in the MCU and how they could have played out differently is still extremely fun, but it seems like maybe Marvel was just too afraid of people being uninterested in an anthology. Fans can be very critical of Marvel when it feels like they're having their time wasted. We sadly live in an era where if one bad episode of a show comes out, it can kill an entire series for somebody. And the idea of an anthology, and especially What If, relies on people having an open mind for each episode and to keep coming back and expecting something different. And I can't disagree that what they ended up doing with season 3 was the right thing to do. The enthusiasm to continue watching every episode as they were releasing wasn't hitting me the same way as other Marvel shows did, or at least the obligation to keep watching so I was up to date on what was happening in the universe. It's extremely difficult to put a lot of faith in your audience when you try so many different ideas. Not every episode can have the broad appeal to every single fan of Marvel, and in turn, viewing numbers are going to lower every single episode. I guess I can understand why we wound up with the What If series that we ended up getting. I just felt like there could have been a lot more done here, and I think a lot of other people agree with me. Those are just my thoughts on What If Season 3 and kind of the series in general. Let me know what you thought about the show down in the comments below, and click on screen for another video.